Okay, good morning, team. This is Mr. E for the Excellence Academy. Thanks a lot for joining me this beautiful Saturday morning. Today, we're going to do part 2 of our call center troubleshooting for the internet. We're going to start with a little review from last week's basic troubleshooting internet vocabulary. You're going to need it for today's lesson on empathy for troubleshooting. So thanks a lot for joining us. And this is going to be class 2 of a 4-part series. So what you see on the screen is the material for lesson 1. I'm going to talk about lesson 2 in just a moment. We're going to do a quick recap from last week. So if you missed last week's class, make sure to watch the video to catch up. I'm also going to turn on the transcription in English so you guys can read along what I'm saying as I'm discussing this class this morning. So we're going to divide this class into, first of all, a review from last week's vocabulary. That's number 1. Number 2, we're going to move on to the new content for this weekend, which is explaining empathy, giving you some examples for empathy for troubleshooting for the internet, basic troubleshooting for the internet. And at the end of the class, I'm going to listen to your questions or provide you other examples if you want. And you will have practice time at the end of the class. So that's what we're going to do for class number 2. So let's get started for this first class. So first, we're going to review. Last week, we defined what is troubleshooting in our last lesson. So what is troubleshooting? We also talked about 12 basic steps for troubleshooting and the vocabulary that we use, which is very common for internet situations, right? Basic internet troubleshooting. And you guys had a little activity at the end. The objectives for last week were to recognize what is troubleshooting for cell phones and to also recognize the basic vocabulary and terminology for troubleshooting for the internet. You guys did some practice and the troubleshooting process that you learned was specifically for Android devices, which are the most common. And also you learned about the sequence steps in a basic troubleshooting scenario for an Android device. So those were the objectives for last week. You need to have the vocabulary. You need to have an understanding from last week's class to be able to do this class this morning. So just a little recap, troubleshooting is a process of problem solving applied to correcting cell phone functions. It is a systematic and logical process to search for the source of the problem, and troubleshooting is necessary to identify the symptoms or the root cause of the problem that is not allowing the cell phone to work properly. In this sense, let's say that's not allowing the cell phone to connect to the internet or perform basic internet functions. So that is to troubleshoot. It's a sequence of steps, a sequence of series of steps that we follow to determine what is the root cause of the problem that is not allowing the phone to connect to the internet. So that's what we call troubleshooting for the internet. Basic vocabulary that we talked about last week were basically 12 steps. We have 12 steps in the process for basic troubleshooting and vocabulary. This is a process for people that are starting for the first time in a call center. If you are starting for the very first time in a call center, this is your first experience and English is not your first language, then this class is for you, because this vocabulary is intended for people that are not only using English as a second language, but also learning what is to troubleshoot for a call center for the first time. So what we did to help you is we put together 12 steps, which I need you guys to practice. So reviewing from last week, we're going to start with step number 1, which is setting expectations. Like, for example, advising the customer that we were going to do some steps. So here the vocabulary is, we're going to run some basic steps. So Mr. Customer, I'm very sorry you can't connect to the internet this time, but don't worry about it, sir. I'm going to definitely help you with this. I'm the right person to talk to. Remember that our priority is to always provide you the best service. So what we're going to do is we're going to run some basic steps, sir. So that's step number 1, advising the customer that you're going to run some basic steps. Number 2, we need to determine if the customer is using the device. So this is a very important question. We ask the customer, are you calling us from your device, sir? Are you using your phone? This is very important because if the customer is on the phone, we need to advise the customer and give him expectations that possibly during the troubleshooting process, there could be an interruption or a problem in the connection. So that's very important to determine. Are you calling us from the phone? Okay. No? Okay, perfect. But if you are calling us from the phone, if the customer is calling us from the phone, it's very important to set proper expectations, like it says over here. Mr. Customer, there could be a possibility that we may be disconnected during the process. So if we get disconnected, I will call you back to continue the troubleshooting process. So if the customer is on the phone, make sure to set proper expectations. Step number 3 in the process is to verify if the customer has connection to the network. We're going to do this by asking a couple of simple questions. The first question is, do you have signal bars? So by asking if the customer has signal bars, we are, oh, sorry there. I think it, all right, let me see. Okay, great. So yeah, as I was saying, by asking, we are asking if the customer has coverage or is connected to the network. We're verifying if the customer has signal bars. So Mr. Customer, do you have signal bars? Can you verify if you have signal bars if you're connected to the network? That's step number 3, very important. Question number 4, as you've noticed, there are a series of questions that we ask. Question number 4 is, do you have the 4G, 5G LED, LTE LED indicator on? This is an indicator, a visual indicator that lets us know if the customer is connected to a high-speed internet connection. So it's very important because you have the internet functions are provided if the customer, let's say, is connected to a 3G. So if the customer is connected at least to a 3G connection, then he or she will have full internet capabilities. But if the customer is not showing the LTE, 5G, or 3G, whatever, then it's pretty likely that the customer is not going to have the full capabilities of the internet. So it's very important to ask. In the process, we're going to also check if Wi-Fi could be interfering. Remember that the Wi-Fi signal has a different signal than the cell phone cellular network. So Wi-Fi sometimes could be interrupting the signal. This could be a case of that, or simply that the phone is not connected to the right tower. So we ask as a check just to verify. We're going to check if you are connected to the Wi-Fi, step number 5. Number 6, we're going to verify that by asking the customer to go to their phone settings. Could you go to your phone settings, Mr. Customer? I'd like to verify if you have the correct settings, or I'd like to verify if your cellular network is on. So could you go to the phone settings, sir? I'd like to verify that. Here we have an example of that. Mr. Customer, could you please go to your phone settings? Customer says, what's that? Tap and hold, slide down on your options at the top of your screen, then look at your gear icon. Tap on the gear icon to access your phone settings. Right, so here you're going to advise the customer to tap on this icon. This is called a gear icon. So for most Android devices, you're going to see the gear icon. So you can advise the customer to look for the gear icon or to tap on the gear icon to have access to the phone settings. Step number 7, to find your quick settings, swipe down from the top of your screen. So here we have basic commands for interaction with a touch screen. So we have here the basic commands for interacting with a cell phone touchscreen, right? For instance, to navigate the phone, we're going to use the verb swipe. We can ask the customer to swipe up, swipe down, swipe left, or swipe right for navigation. So the verb is swipe. Here, number 8, we are giving instructions to look for certain options on the phone screen. So there's certain vocabulary that you need to use. For example, you have here on the left corner of your screen, Mr. Customer, can you look for the Wi-Fi icon on the left corner of the screen. If you can look there, you'll be able to see it. So you can, you have to give directions, right? You have to advise customers on where things are on the display screen of the phone. For instance, here, left corner of the screen, right corner of the screen, top of the screen, home screen, bottom of the screen, bottom left corner of the screen, and bottom right corner of the screen. So depending on where the icon is located or the option is located, we need to guide the customer towards the correct location on the screen. Okay, so that vocabulary is important. Number 9, if the Wi-Fi icon is on, tap on it to turn it off so the icon is dimmed. So to turn off and turn on applications or to activate applications on the phone or certain functions on the phone, we use the verb tap, followed by the prepositions, for example, tap on to activate. You can also tap on again to turn off or to deactivate a certain application. Another way of, you might need sometimes to tap and hold. So tap and hold means to leave your finger there, tap and hold, and swipe down, or tap and hold, right? If you want the customer to access the menu, the hidden menu here at the top, the quick access menu, you might have to tell your customer, please tap and hold, right? Tap and hold, right, at the top of your screen and slide down. So in that way, you're advising your customer to activate the quick menu, right? So tap on means to activate, tap and hold, to tap and sustain the finger in place. Number step, it's very important to test that the internet is working for the customer. So you're going to advise your customer after making the changes that you made. Okay, Mr. Customer, we're going to go ahead and we're going to test your internet. We're going to test your internet. So the correct term is test. We're going to test your internet. Step 11. Could you please try to load a website or YouTube video? Could you please try to load? So the verb that we're going to use is load. We're going to load. We're going to load a website or video. So after you've done your tests and after you've advised your customer about what they need to do, we can use the verb load. So we can advise the customer to test the internet by loading a YouTube video or by activating an app or something of that sort. So it's important to do a test just to make sure that your changes were effective. And the last step was to provide a little recap on what we did. For this scenario, what we did was basically we turned off Wi-Fi and turned it back on. Sometimes that helps. It's a way of fixing it. Sometimes you might need to do other steps on your system. But just to give you a quick example of how, one of the steps that you could do to solve the problem. So here the recap says, so today we checked your phone settings and got you back on the internet. It's very likely that your phone was connected to a Wi-Fi hotspot where the internet was not available. So by turning off the Wi-Fi, we switched back to the automatically to your mobile data. So that's just giving like a short recap of what you did. Based on the steps that you followed, it's very important to provide a little recap for your customers. So Mr. Customer, today I refreshed the tower, right? I refreshed the tower location, and that's how we got you back on the internet. So Mr. Customer, today we checked your phone settings and we entered the correct IPN address or APN address. We entered the correct information, and that's how we got you back on the internet. Okay. So we provide a series of steps. We just provide a recap at the end for our customer. Okay. And basically, those were the 12 steps for last week. Okay. For this week, we're going to talk about in lesson number 2. For this week's lesson, for call center troubleshooting, basic troubleshooting for the internet, we're going to focus on empathy. We're going to define what is empathy, and we're going to give you a couple of empathy statements that you can use with your customers. This is especially great if you're using English as a second language and you're working for a call center for the very first time. So let's take a look at, first of all, the lesson for today. So today we're going to talk about what is empathy. We're going to give you a definition, and we're going to give you some examples of empathy phrases and vocabulary that you can use for your calls. We'll do it through a role play. The objectives for this lesson are basically to recognize what is empathy, to have a definition, to recognize the basic vocabulary for empathy, and to use empathy in a troubleshooting process for the internet. Those would be the objectives for this lesson. So let's begin by defining empathy. Okay, so over here, basically it says here, empathy is to imagine what it's like for the customer, to imagine what it's like for the customer. Empathy is the ability to recognize feelings and emotions in others. The idea is called empathy, and the action is used as empathize, to empathize. We have to be able to recognize the feelings and emotions of our customers, especially when customers have inconveniences with their service or issues with their phone device. Put yourself in the customer's shoes. A lot of times we hear this very common cliche about empathy, and it's a good way of looking at it. However, empathy is about using your imagination. That is, you need to imagine the situation your customer is going through, especially in regard to the feelings that customers experience when the service is not working or the device is not operating correctly. These feelings are generally of frustration or anxiety. It is your job to sympathize with the situation and eventually empathize. Imagine what it's like for the customer. You're imagining how it would feel and how the situation would be. Right? So in short, empathy is the ability to recognize feelings and emotions in others, right? It's the ability to imagine the situation of another person. It's the ability to imagine the feelings of another person, right? And when you do that, you are empathizing, and you verbalize those feelings, right? You verbalize, you communicate to the other person those feelings. So I'll give you an example. Let's say you come to me and you say to me, "Hey, Mr. E, I'm sorry, I can't connect to your class today because my mom is sick." And my response to your concern would be something like, "Okay, so when are you going to send homework?" So that's totally a disconnect, right? You're like, this guy doesn't understand, he doesn't care, right? So that's totally a disconnection, right? If I didn't empathize with your situation, right? So now let's do it with empathy. I'm going to imagine, right? Everybody has a mother, so I'm going to imagine my mother being sick, and I'm going to imagine that your class is important. And now let's go back in time. So now you're going to come to me and you're going to say, "Hey, Mr. E, I can't connect to your class today because my mom is sick. I need to take her to the hospital." And I'm going to say like, "Oh my goodness, really? Look, I'm so sorry to hear that your mom is sick. I know it's complicated for you right now, but it's okay. Don't worry. I'm going to record the class and I'll share with you the materials afterwards. So it's fine, and thank you for letting me know. I do appreciate it. And I truly hope everything is well with your mom." Okay, that's different. So that was making a connection, right? I was empathizing, right? I could say things like, "I imagine it's difficult for you at this time. I realize you are very concerned about your mom's health," or "I understand this is complicated for you," or, "I understand you cannot be today because you have to be with your mom, right? So, I realize it's an emergency. So don't worry about it. It's fine." So what I'm doing there is I'm empathizing with you, right? I have a mother too, so I know what it's like. So that's the idea. It's imagine basically imagine the other person's feelings, imagine the other person's situation, and try to verbalize it. Try to express what you would feel, you know. You can use phrases like I understand, I realize, I know it's difficult, I know it's complicated, I know it's hard. And you can also acknowledge the feelings, especially the feelings. Like if the person is anxious, you could say, or worried, look, I understand you're worried. I realize you're worried about your mom, or, you know, it's okay to be worried. So that is to recognize those emotions, right? We are acknowledging them. For customer service and the phone. So just imagine when you don't have the internet, how do you feel? When you don't have your service, when you can't connect, when you can't work, when you can't chat, when you can't use your WhatsApp, or when you can't connect to Zoom to receive your classes, or do your job, or whatever it is you need to do, how do you feel? Right? You feel frustrated, you feel anxious, and maybe you could feel angry because it could irritate you if you don't have self-control. So basically, people are going to call you with these feelings. They're going to be anxious, they're going to be frustrated, they're going to be worried, and maybe upset or angry. What you need to do is just imagine what it's like, right? You are a customer too. You know what it's like not to have your service. And, you know, it's just normal. You can say, you know, I understand you're worried. I understand you're concerned about your service. I understand you are upset. I realize you're upset. It's okay to be upset. You know, so you acknowledge those feelings. It is incorrect to think. A lot of people say, when it comes to empathy, you are going to calm down the customer. You're going to say a magic phrase and the customer is going to calm down. That is totally incorrect. You can never calm down an angry customer. That's never going to happen. What you can do is acknowledge the customer's feelings. You can try to understand what the customer is going through, but you will never calm down anybody, because there is no secret words. There's no secret script that's going to do that for you. What you can do is take a deep breath, breathe, breathe out, listen, try to understand, try to acknowledge, don't take it personal, empathize, use a couple of phrases for empathy, and continue to do your job. That's the way it is. Okay. So there is no magic phrase. There are no magic words, and empathy is not about calming customers down, because you will never calm down an angry customer. The more people feel understood, the better they will feel, and the more able you will be able to do your job. Okay, so empathy is not about calming people down. Empathy is about recognizing, acknowledging the feelings, saying, look, Daniel, it's okay to be angry, Daniel. I know. I mean, it happens. Or Genesis, it's okay to be worried about your exam. It's okay to be worried. I understand you're worried, right? I understand you are angry, right? Not with me. You're angry with the company. So I understand that. Okay. So that's empathy. Imagine what it's like. Okay. So that's basically the definition, right? Imagine what it's like, the feelings and the emotions. Here we have an example interaction for the internet, right? As you can see, we got a customer here, doesn't look too happy. And we've got an agent and a customer interaction here. Letter A is going to be for the agent. Letter C is for the customer. Let's take a look. So the agent says, starts the phone. We're just going to take a look at the beginning of the call. We're not going to do the whole process. Thank you for calling customer service. My name is Rachel. How can I help you today? Hi, thank you. This is like the third time I'm calling about this. I can't connect to the internet and I really need to get on the web right now. Can you help me with this? Then the agent responds by saying, I'm so sorry to hear you can't connect to the internet at this time. I realize it's important to have your full 5G service, but I could definitely help you with that. Customer continues. I truly hope so, because I'm paying you guys a lot of money for a service I'm not getting. We continue with more empathy. Mr. Customer, I realize the situation has made you upset, but you're talking to the right person to help you. Our priority is to always provide you with the best service. Well, I hope you can, because it's not the first time this has happened. So what do you need me to do first? Perfect. And then you can start, well, let me go ahead and verify your account, and we're going to do some basic steps. We're going to check your phone. We're going to work on the system here, and we will get you back on the internet. And then you start your troubleshooting process. Are you talking to me on the phone? Do you have signal bars? Is the Wi-Fi connection on? Let's go to your settings. Let's check your phone settings. You understand? Let's run a couple of tests. Everything good? Okay, goodbye. See you later. And that's the end of the process. You understand? Okay, so the vocabulary that the agent used, well, basically, we're going to take a look at that right now. As you can see, this paragraph, this agent started by saying, look, I'm sorry to hear, you can't connect to the internet at this time. I realize it's important to have your full service, your full 5G, whatever, but I can definitely help you with that. So we have to use empathy with assurance of help. So it's always, I'm very sorry to hear that, but I can definitely help you. It's concerning that you cannot connect, but I'm the right person to talk to. I'm sorry the internet is slow, but I will fix it for you. I'm sorry to hear you cannot connect to your applications, but I can definitely work on my system and help you with this. I'm sorry to hear that the internet is not working properly, but I'm the right person that's going to help you. I'm going to run some tests, and I will make this situation good for you again, and I'll get you back on the internet. So there's always a combination of empathy with assurance of help, empathy, assurance of help, empathy, assurance of help. This is very important. The empathy and the assurance of help in customer service must go side by side. It's very important that you express yourself correctly. I really like the second phrase here, because the customer continues to express the feelings. Look at this person's face, right? You can see this person's face. She's not happy. She continues by saying, I truly hope so, because I'm paying you guys a lot of money for a service I'm not getting. So the customer continues expressing, we call this venting. The customer is venting, Customers like to vent. Customers like to vent. To vent is when we say in Spanish, desahogarse, you vent. So customers like to vent. They like to vent with agents. And that's perfectly okay, so what the customer is doing here is she's venting. I'm paying you guys a lot of money. It's the third time I'm calling you. So she's venting. Se está desahogando. We continue with more empathy, of course, something like this. I realize the situation has made you upset. I understand it's difficult. I understand you are upset. I realize you are upset, but you're talking to the right person, right? You're talking to the right agent. You're talking to a specialist here. I can help you with this, And what I really like about this interaction is also the value. There is a value statement, which I like a lot. Our priority is to always provide you with the best service. This is great. I really like this, because we're adding value, right? Because the internet not working, that's temporary, right? This is temporary, because you're going to work. You're going to have people working and yourself to restore the service. So remember that we are giving a service, and our priority as representatives is to always provide the best service, the best internet speed, the best customer service, the best experience. So you got to remind the customer, this is temporary, right? Mr. Customer, I realize the situation is difficult. I realize you're angry, but this is temporary. I will work on the system. You're talking to the right person to help you with this. And remember, our priority is to always provide you the best service. Our priority is your satisfaction. Or you could say, my priority is to help you with this. My priority is to restore your service, Mr. Customer. I can definitely help you with this. My priority is to restore your service. My priority is to give you the best internet connection, right? So reminding the customer that is very important, right? My priority is to help you with this. Do you understand? My priority, our priority is to give you the best service. So that makes the customer feel, okay, well, this guy understands and that he's right? This is only a service. So with that being said, the customer is not happy. Don't expect the customer to smile and say, oh, I feel good now. No, customer is still going to be very much probably concerned or angry, but you are recognizing that the customer is upset or the customer is concerned. And that is the first step. That is the most important step. Then you can work with people, because when people feel understood, you can start working with them. Okay. All right, great. And we avoided a supervisor call. There are basically two levels. The first level is this one. I call it the generic level. Number one, this is the first one. I'm sorry to hear you can't connect to the internet at this time. I realize it's important to have your service, but I could definitely help you with that. May I please have your telephone number? Right? Number one. If the customer continues to vent or to complain, then like the customer here this is venting, right? The customer continues to vent even after you said that. Okay, no problem. Then you go to number two. Then number two is necessary. Do you understand? You're going to go and say, Mr. Customer, I realize the situation has made you upset, but you're talking to the right person. Remember, our priority is to provide you the best service. Can I please have your telephone number so I can fix this situation for you? Right? So you don't necessarily need to say both phrases, right? Do you understand? With this one is enough. That's enough. That should be enough. Number one, do you understand? But if necessary, if the customer continues to argue, if the customer continues to vent, then you can try number two, and that's it. Do you understand? Okay. Because if most of the time, I would say, 80% of the time, the first one is okay. People get it, people get it. But if the customer just wants to vent, just wants to argue, listen, don't interrupt the customer. And then when you have an opportunity, acknowledge, I realize the situation has made you upset. Okay. So let's make sure to understand that. Okay. So number one, the phrase number one is the most common one. And we go straight to the point. If the customer continues, then go to step number two. Go to empathy statement number two. Okay. Never take it personal. Let's go to the next one over here. So let's take a look at some scripts. Okay. So this is the vocabulary that you need. If you want to start providing empathy, you need to start providing the proper vocabulary. The first empathy script is, I'm sorry to hear you can't connect to the internet at this time. Okay, that's your script. I can't connect to the internet. I really need my service. Mr. Customer, I'm sorry to hear you can't connect at the internet at this time, but I can definitely help you with this. Mr. Customer, I'm sorry to hear you can't connect to the internet at this time, but you're talking to the right person, and let me verify on my end. I'm gonna run some tests here, and we'll get you back on the internet. Rest assured. Okay. So the first vocabulary you need to learn is this. This is a good one. I'm sorry to hear you can't connect to the internet at this time, especially if English is not your first language. Okay. You need vocabulary. That's example number one. Okay. Here's the next script that we can use. Remember that a script, when you have a script, at the beginning, you start reading them verbatim. Verbatim means word by word, So at the beginning, when you start this process, you need to just memorize scripts or read scripts because you are not familiar with the language. So scripts, you read them word by word or verbatim. For example, here's another one. This is a good one. I realize it's important to have your full 5G service, right? You don't need to say 5G necessarily, right? I realize it's important to have your full service, but I could definitely help you with that. So the first one is an empathy phrase. Empathy phrases start with verbs like, for instance, I realize, right? I understand. right? I can see, right? So empathy phrases usually start with verbs like I realize, I understand, I can see. For example, I understand you haven't had service for 3 hours. I realize the situation can be difficult. I can see you are very angry about this situation. I realize you're upset. I understand it's difficult right now. I can see that you are tired of waiting for your service to get back online. So empathy phrases usually start with these verbs. I realize, I understand, I can see. To begin, you can start memorizing this script. I realize it's important, not for you. That's incorrect. I realize it's important to have your full service. I realize it's important to have your internet. I realize it's important to have your complete service, So make emphasis on that, okay? I realize it's important to have your full 5G service. And after that, we have assurance of help. But I can definitely help you with that. So always assurance of help. I realize it's very important to have your full G service, your full 5G service. But you're talking to the right person, and I will definitely work on my end here. Let me go ahead and verify on my system. Let me go ahead and check the steps here to help you with your internet. Okay, so always combine it with your assurance of help statements. Empathy script number 3. Okay, this is if the customer continues to vent, if the customer continues to be angry with the situation. Again, we are going to start with the verb I realize or I understand. I realize the situation has made you upset, but you're talking to the right person to help you. Okay, so here what I'm doing is I'm acknowledging the feelings, right? Like upset. So Mr. Customer, I realize the situation has made you concerned. Mr. Customer, I realize the situation has made you worried. Mr. Customer, I realize the situation has made you angry. But you're talking to the right person. Let me go ahead and verify on my end. I will definitely help you with your internet. Okay, so starting like this is proper, right? What we're doing here is we're recognizing the emotions the person is feeling. Most of the time, like I said, they're going to be frustrated or anxious. Okay, guys, so that's going to be empathy script number 3. I'll repeat it one more time for you. I realize this situation has made you upset, but you're talking to the right person to help you. Okay, so what are you going to do? You need to memorize this. This is vocabulary. You understand? Learn it, because if you don't learn it, you're not going to have words. So you need to memorize this, especially if this is your first time. Okay, practice it. Today you're going to practice a little bit. Practice it, review it, verbalize it, because you're going to need it on your calls. Trust me, you're going to need it. Okay. All right. And this is a good one. Empathy and value script. I like to call it value because we're adding value to the company, by saying, for example, our priority is to always provide you with the best service, right? Our priority. I like how that sounds, right? Let's say somebody comes to me, right? Let's say Araceli says to me, Mr. E, I'm frustrated with my class. I don't understand anything or something like that. And I don't know. Then I'm going to say to Araceli, I'm so sorry to hear that you feel frustrated with your class. I realize you are frustrated with this, but, our priority is to always provide you the best English class and to give you ideas and vocabulary to help you. Don't worry, I can definitely help you with that. Maybe we can find some other way that you can learn, So what did I do? I empathized with my student, with Araceli. I recognize she's frustrated, right? It's fine. I mean, I realize you're frustrated. I realize you are angry, and it's okay. right? Learning customer service is not easy the first time, but you know, my priority is to help you. My priority is to teach you. My priority is to give you vocabulary. My priority is to help you achieve your goal of getting a job. That's my priority. So let me do my job. Let me find a solution here. We can definitely work together and we can help you get back on track. Okay, so that's it. You understand? You're reminding the customer of the priority of your priorities, and your priority is customer satisfaction. Okay, we're going to take a look at the pronunciation in just a moment, but that's the vocabulary. So for this morning, you're going to practice 4 phrases. Okay, just 4. I don't want to give you like too many. I have a video with 100 empathy phrases, which I'm going to share with you, so you can listen to that too. 100 empathy phrases. But for this morning, 4 is all I need. Only 4. We need to start somewhere. So empathy script number 1. This is the basic, generic, the most common one. You're going to start with this one. I'm sorry to hear you can't connect to the internet at this time. Follow up with this. Follow up. Follow up. This is to follow up. This is a follow-up. So both are connected. I realize it's very important to have your full 5G service, but I could definitely help you with that. If the customer continues to vent, to argue, then no problem. Take out your next empathy phrase. Right? This is only if the customer continues to argue, to vent. I realize the situation has made you upset, but you're talking to the right person to help you. All right? This is only if the customer continues. If the customer continues or is still feeling upset, well, you remind the customer of your company priorities, your company vision, your company goal, which is, for example, Mr. Customer, I realize you're upset about the internet, but look, our priority is to always provide you with the best service. So I could definitely help you with this. May I please have your telephone number so we can get to work on this right now? You know? So that's going to be your 4th resource for this morning. Okay, perfect. So, so just to recap for this lesson, I'm going to give you some practice time right now. So just to recap for this first lesson, lesson number 2, empathy, remember, is the ability to imagine the situation of another person. In this case, your customer. Imagine the feelings of your customer, the emotions. Imagine the situation. It's not easy. When you need your cell phone to work and it's not working, it's complicated. So just imagine. Second thing, empathy is not about calming people down. There are no magic words. There are no magic words. You just need to recognize, understand what the customer is going through and try to verbalize it. Okay, there are no magic words and you cannot calm down anybody. Okay, you can use this one as a basic guide, right, to help you with that. Vocabulary phrase number 1. This is the most common one. I'm sorry to hear you can't connect to the internet at this time. That's going to be your first resource. You can follow up this one with the second phrase. I realize it's very important to have your full 5G service, but I could definitely help you with that. If the customer continues to argue, to complain, or to vent, you can follow up with another empathy phrase. Mr. Customer, I realize the situation has made you upset, but you're talking to the right person to help you. May I please have your telephone number so we can get back, so we can start to work on this. Or you can use this one attached with a value statement, which I recommend. So you're going to add this one. Our priority is to always provide you with the best service. Okay, so let's connect it. So number 3 and 4. I realize the situation has made you upset, but you're talking to the right person to help you. Our priority is to always provide you with the best service. Now, may I please have your telephone number, area code first, so I can get to work on this. Okay. Or you can connect 1 and 2. For example, Mr. Customer, I'm so sorry to hear that you can't connect to the internet at this time. I realize it's very important for you to have your full 5G service, but I could definitely help you with this. May I please have your telephone number, area code first. And then you start your troubleshooting process, your verification, whatever you need to do. Okay. And you can empathize during the whole call, not just at the beginning. At any moment that it's necessary to empathize, continue empathizing with the customer. Okay, perfect. And we're going to go ahead and practice right now. I'm going to I'm going to discuss 2 levels of practice. In the first activity, you're going to practice the scripts with a partner. Use the examples in the role play. Then start using your own words. That's very important. By using your own words, what I mean is start to personalize. Start personalize your situation, right? Personalize it with your brand, the company that you represent, or personalize it with your own work situation, right? Like if you're working for Amazon, personalize it for Amazon. If you're working for, let's say, a T-Mobile, personalize it for T-Mobile. Okay, so that's important. Start using your own words. The idea are key verbs. In empathy, the key word is I realize, I understand, I'm sorry to hear, X and Y. I realize, key terms. Those are key terms, and you can start personalizing with your own style, right? Hey, Mr. Customer, I realize this situation is not easy for you, but you're talking to the right person to help you get back on track, right? Personalize it, but use the vocabulary. Okay. And in number 2, if you feel you're ready, you can do the whole process. You can do last week's troubleshooting steps. Just order them, right? Order the troubleshooting steps from last week. And do the whole role play. Do your empathy, practice the vocabulary, do the whole role play. If you feel you're ready, do the whole role play and practice like that, the complete role play, if you feel you're ready. If not, that's fine. I mean, you can start just by practicing today the vocabulary for empathy. That's fine. You can just focus on that. That's all right. And but if you feel you're good, I got this, it's not complicated, then you can definitely go ahead and do the whole troubleshooting process with empathy now. Okay, next week we'll continue with more practice time on that. All right, guys. So in the end, that's what we got for this second class on empathy. So remember, we talked about what is empathy. We gave you some examples for empathy for troubleshooting. You need to be able to recognize now. I hope that you can recognize what is empathy now. And you can also recognize some basic vocabulary and some how you can use empathy for a specific troubleshooting process. So that's going to be it for this second class on troubleshooting, basic troubleshooting for the internet, number 2. In class number 3, we're going to have a practice activity at the beginning of the class. So there's a requirement. If you want to be in class 3 next week, you need to have class 1 and class 2. Okay, because I'm not going to review that. I'm just going to go straight to the practice activity that I have for next week. All right, perfect. So now we're going to go ahead and practice. Thank you very much. I'm going to pause it right now.